Hi everyone, my name is Vijil, and and this is Sales on Record. Uh, as a first, this is our first webinar on a very, how would I say, uh, interesting topic uh, that me and Sachin want to discuss. So over the last 2, 3 episodes, we've been discussing a lot about sales, and one of the things that we recently learned from while talking to our customers, while understanding a lot of stuff was that uh, a lot of folks have a bunch of different questions on sales, and we thought it made sense to have a live webinar to actually have a conversation on these topics and maybe take the help of other experts, including Sachin, to answer these questions. Now, all of you, if you are a listener of Sales on Record, you already know Sachin. Sachin is the co-founder of Matricard, and he has over 10 years of experience in selling and running sales teams, building and running sales teams. He himself has co-founded 2 companies, including Matricard, and I think he's my go-to guy whenever there's a question about sales or anything that we want to deploy for a sales team or we want to build a product around sales team. He's the guy to go to. So he's the guy for sales, if the guy for sales for us, at least at this point in time. So in this webinar, we are going to tackle a very how to say amazing topic. Now, how to improve sales, that's pretty generic, but how to improve sales without a budget and without being able to hire any new sales folks? How do you do that? That's a topic we want to tackle in this webinar. Sachin, to start it off, I'll pass it on to you, and ready whenever you are.
Sure. Thanks, Vijil, for the introduction. And yeah, this is a topic which we were coming across a lot to hear from our customers, as in like most of the customers, since we are also in a product-based company. So we were talking to a lot of sales folks, and a product is primarily targeted towards sales folks. So it made kind of it hearing a lot from sales leaders that, okay, we don't have the budgets, but we still need to achieve some numbers or quotas. And how do we do that without any large budgets, marketing budgets, or as such any sales budgets, and without hiring new sales folks? I mean, we are at a very kind of challenging times, if I may say that way, in terms of like doing business, like globally, right? So we were the background of this entire conversation started when we got a lot of insights from our sales leaders. Probably most of them are customers or either going to be customers or prospects, and also in my wider sales community network. So where I get to hear these things that, hey, our budgets are cut, but we still need to achieve maybe higher numbers than the year before because the markets is challenging. We still have maybe a smaller team itself in some cases, but we still need to achieve those numbers. So we realized that, okay, why not try to dive deeper into this and talk to a lot more sales leaders, trying to understand how it can benefit a wider community in terms of what we are trying to understand ourselves. Like we realized, okay, so these are the 3 things that's kind of got us started. Budgets are being cut, hiring was paused or is paused in a lot of cases. There are no new hiring happening generally in companies right now. People have put it on hold, or people have been hiring only when they are like sure of about it, and they have very tight revenue targets in terms of what they need to achieve. So revenue targets have increased instead of decreasing in some cases. So that got us started in terms of our thinking process, and then we kind of had a conversation internally as well as to a lot of our sales prospect leaders, and we came across certain data and insights which could be useful for a wider community, as I said. So
I mean,
moving on, yeah, Vijay,
it's
you want to add something?
actually, yeah. I mean, it's actually interesting, right? This is not a new problem. If you go back a couple of years when the pandemic started, middle of pandemic, like how I would say, like mid stage of pandemic, a lot of companies had overhired, and then they were letting go of a lot of people. They were cutting costs because
Exactly. Yeah.
at the end, by the end of it, they were not getting enough business. And at the end of pandemic, again, a lot of boom happened. A lot of folks hired. They got a lot of funding. Then now there's this they call it a funding winter going on, right? So this is not a new problem. So there is a way to solve it, right? Many of us might not have faced it because we are young, but 2001, 2002, a lot of this had happened, and it's actually kind of repeating again, right? So that's something that we should cater to. So there are people who know how to deal with this. I think that's where we are at.
Yeah. So I mean, I have experienced it myself in the 2008-9 period when I was just getting started with my sales career. So I can relate to it. But that time, I was more like operational guy. I was kind of getting started. So of course, I didn't have a wider picture in terms of how things would pan out. But I still kind of experienced it in some sense. But yeah, coming back to our kind of understanding of what we kind of discovered. So these are some broad numbers. Generally, we're trying to understand. Okay, this is like a publicly available number. A lot of companies kind of have this data. You'll find websites where this data is published. So we saw like more than 100,000 employees being laid off across multiple companies. And we're not talking about some of the big names, of course, are there, which would be included in this number. But yeah, there are a lot of smaller companies which are also kind of laying off employees for some reason or the other. We'll not go into the details because that's a separate discussion altogether. But yeah, moving on again. But yeah, at the same time, we see data which predicts that there is business to be made here. There is an opportunity which is lying there to be taken by sales teams or basically organizations as businesses, where we see an opportunity where spends are increasing up to 2.1 trillion on software and services, which includes products, services, everything that you might include in the tech domain. So that got us kind of more thinking. And then there's opportunity. I mean, we see at one point of time, of course, there are people who are still looking for products, services, and I mean, whatnot, right? So there is opportunity definitely there for sales team to catch on. But yeah, having said that, the question is, how do you tap this opportunity? How does a sales leader kind of leverage this opportunity when they are helping their sales team achieve these numbers? So that's that's the whole topic that we are going to discuss today. So there are, of course, takeaways from this that you'll get as well, where we'll discuss exactly what are the steps you need to take to answer these questions. How do we tap this opportunity?
I mean, opportunity is, of course, one thing, right? There are multiple ways to do it. But the other thing is, chances are some of these companies might not be, as a company themselves, some of us might not even be able to pitch to these large companies who are spending that much money, right? But that does not mean that we have to get into losses, right? So that does not mean that our targets would decrease, or we cannot make our targets at all, right? So there has to be a way where even if we are not tapping into this opportunity, we are optimizing what we are already doing right now. So whatever market we are in, there has to be a way to optimize that market, right? Optimize the whole process to figure out a way to increase revenue without spending big bucks into it, without spending into marketing or hiring, all those kind of things. It's opportunities, of course, one thing, but I think optimizing the revenue
current
source.
processes, revenues, or how you can, I mean, keeping up to the speed is also a challenge, right? In today's times, challenging times. So that's also one of the things we're going to cover in the next few slides that you'll see here.
Of course.
Yeah. So no, I mean, there are very two simple ways to improve revenue for any sales leader. One is cutting costs, which is not the topic for today. That's another topic, as I said. The topic we're going to focus on, or the subject we're going to focus on, is how to improve sales. So that's not kind of a, we don't take it as a negative approach, that we take it as a positive approach in terms of how we can tap this opportunity and improve our sales process, or improve even our current processes to optimize that process for a better results, maybe not immediately, maybe in the next few quarters or next year, even for that matter.
I mean, see, here's the thing too, right? Right now, people are cutting costs, they're letting go of people, right? Again, in a couple of years ago, when pandemic was going on, there were a couple of companies I was consulting with, large, pretty medium-sized large companies, right? Between 200 to 500 people, and the way they increased their revenue was by letting go of a lot of people. And what they realized was they needed these folks when they were growing, and they just started expanding, right? And they had to rehire them. They had to rehire them. That's kind of embarrassing as a company. So that and a lot of people don't understand that cutting costs does not mean letting go of people or cutting essential infrastructure, right? And that's and it does not even mean that even if you do that, you would succeed in getting the long-term growth that you want. right? Short term, of course, you cut off people, 100 people, you let go of 100 people, or you reduce infrastructure costs. Short term, there will be immediate numbers increase in terms of revenue. Long term, I'm not really sure how effective that is. Right?
Yeah, definitely. Cutting costs is like a very kind of a shortcut way of doing things, if for lack of a better word. But yeah, so that also leaves a bad impact on people who are staying back as well. So, and of course, the way you kind of cut off as well. But as I said, like we'll focus on improving sales today. And that's what we're going to discuss in the next few slides as well. So improving sales broadly, as you can see the numbers, like it's very clearly says 42% of all companies looking to increase the marketing budget, which means there is a way out there, which means also means that improving sales definitely has a upside. So when I say upside, basically, I mean, it not just helps you increase kind of reach your revenue numbers, but it also helps you increase overall productivity, overall lead gen, pipeline, and so on. So one of the things, the objectives of improving sales is, as in we kind of figured it out in these conversations with our sales leaders, is that helping sales teams to increase number of leads, which is directly going to impact your pipeline, directly going to impact your revenue, and directly going to impact the general outlook of the company as well in terms of revenue. So demand gen and lead gen is going to help you increase number of leads. How are you going to do that? Of course, we'll follow that in the next few slides. But yeah, improving productivity sometimes takes a backseat because everybody is focused on numbers. But then improving productivity is going to result, the byproduct of improving productivity is going to lead to revenue numbers as well. So which means, yeah, Rizal, you want to jump in?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's one thing that people don't understand, right? Lead gen, demand gen helps, right? And these companies who are trying to spend more on marketing are doing a good thing. But what they don't understand is just because you want leads tomorrow does not mean that your marketing, even if you pump in money, does not mean marketing would be able to give you those leads tomorrow, right? Marketing, like anything else, takes time. You pump in money today, and you will see if it's content or something of the sort, you will see results coming in 6 months, 7 months down the line. If it's ads, even that, if you're starting it now, even that would take 30 to 45 days to optimize. But right now, it won't work with marketing. I mean, we should still spend on marketing because long-term goal, but short-term, it won't. Like at least within the quarter, chances of it working and showing a drastic increase in revenue is next to impossible unless you're spending a lot of money on ads. And ads is again not a long-term solution, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
it won't work. So productivity is, as you said, right? People takes a backseat. Uh, I would say I think all the companies I worked in, nobody even thinks about productivity. As a sales, when I was selling as a sales manager,
Mm-hmm.
I thought of productivity because the CEO of the company, who used to be part of or training all these managers, told me once, "Hey, why don't you look at how productive your people are?" Until then, most of the literature I read mostly spoke about how to generate more leads, how to get more interest. How can you do that more? And that usually meant hiring more folks, right? So I would say not backseat. I would say, I mean, there's no seat at all for improving productivity in most cases. Yeah.
Yeah, so improving productivity has two aspects. Like one of the aspects is helping a salesperson or a sales team increase their productivity in terms of how they do their job on a day-to-day basis, how they achieve the numbers, how they perform the tasks. The other is by helping, basically, which is more important than improving a salesperson's productivity, is improving the processes in your sales process, as in sales motion. So which will help you not just help one salesperson, but everybody in the team and the entire organization, if I may say that. So it's two aspects to productivity that you want to focus on. Yeah, moving on then. So increasing productivity again, as we can see, has two things. One is improving individual salesperson productivity, as we talked about, and the other is around automating processes or automating activities in the sales process, which is going to help the entire team. Now, what does improving the individual salesperson productivity mean? So essentially what it means is helping marketing and sales teams collaborate better And that is one of the ways we identified is through ABM, sorry, which is account-based marketing, wherein both teams, as in sales and marketing teams, and individuals can collaborate and increase like revenues exponentially of course, over a period of time, because ABM in effect takes at least 3 to 6 months, if not more. And the second is around improving the sales process, improvement and coaching. Whereas,
Yeah, especially the ABM part, I want to pitch in here. What people don't understand about ABM is it's not about just generating leads, right? The amount of collaboration that ABM requires between sales and marketing, if done even averagely well, right? For lack of a better word, I'm just making up one. Even if the collaboration is average, the impact on sales is like amazing. What happens here is, instead of marketing generating leads, as they call it, right, and giving it to sales, and salespeople actually struggling through qualifying these leads, calling them 10 times, and marketing sitting on their head, say, why haven't you called them? Like, why haven't you done those 30-day 10 touch or something along the lines? Why haven't you sent those emails? Instead of doing that, what ABM does helps both the teams do is they align on the target. They figure out who's the right person that sales wants to talk to, and then get that person on the table with the salesperson. I mean, that's the gist of it, right? What that means is, when the sales guy is calling a person, they don't have to worry about, hey, is this lead qualified? Is this the right guy to talk to? Because the person who's standing in front of them will be the right guy. So the entire process from lead to qualified lead just vanishes with ABM, and that basically means faster pipeline velocity, faster conversion, more conversations, better demos, right? So that helps them a lot. And this number 208%, I think that's an understatement. ABM's helped enterprise guys tremendously. So yeah.
Okay, we'll dive deeper into the sales process improvement part of it, wherein how and the numbers kind of state itself. Although this is a much ignored number by sales leaders and sales teams, it kind of we have seen this improvement in revenue by optimizing sales processes up to 30%, which is quite a significant number. This is actually a surprise number even for me, because I would say I would have led. I was led into believing that the other side of things, where you are helping a sales rep improve their performance, is going to matter more than this. But of course, that still has a kind of a higher percentage. But yeah, I would definitely have disagreed if somebody would have not told me upfront, like people telling me on face.
That is, individual sales performance is still part of this thing, right? The individual sales performance improves if you improve the process, reduce friction, and all those kind of things, right? And 30, as I said, most companies, at least in the mid-market section, the companies I worked with, at least, they don't even think about sales process improvement. Most processes in the early stages, let's say, at least in SCA in US, where I work, most companies who are like 100, 150 people, their sales processes like ad hoc. Somebody started it, somebody added on, now it became a process. Rarely there is a documentation, or if there is, it would be mostly on a Google Doc, so kept somewhere that nobody looks at. Right? So, as I said, this 30% is like how do I say, brilliant. It's just that nobody knew about it.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's get into the details of sales process improvement. What does it constitute of? So what we realized, again, this could differ from teams to teams, and two different teams could be slightly different. But broadly, what we saw is there is a kind of a mutual kind of agreement through our conversations between most sales leaders, is that it kind of constitutes of these 4 steps. Very first, evaluate the current process, and then basically segment your salespeople. So what you are trying to do here is, because there'll always be top performers, average performers, and medium performers. So what you want to do is segment these salespeople, and then define the best practices that you see being kind of followed by some of these the top performers especially, right? And then create a new or update, basically update your existing sales process around these best practices. So, and the last step is, of course, once you have implemented or kind of taken note of these best practices, you want to implement, coach, and then, of course, measure it. unless you measure it, of course, you'll never know whether this worked or this didn't work. So how do you evaluate your current process? That's an interesting question. So in terms of evaluating your current process, right now we kept it very simple. So you have a sales document or a sales process document. Simply go to that, use that document if it's already there. If not, just create a one pager. So this one pager doesn't have to be too complicated. It has to be very simple. Like what you're doing on a day-to-day basis to close a sales deal or sourcing a contact. Right from the first step of the sales process, which could be either inbound or outbound, whatever you're doing, and then trying to figure things out from there. So it's a very, like, how do you kind of, let's say, cook a recipe so it's very simple in that ways that, okay, you start sourcing your leads from LinkedIn or whichever source that works for you. And then how do you close that deal to until you get the payment from the customer? So it's simple as that. So try to figure that out on a one page. And that's your sales process to start with. Of course, this will get refined and get better as we get more into the sales process. But yeah, this is where you need to get started with. Yeah, this is one example of how a sales process example looks like. We'll be sharing this after the call with the participants, and participants can, of course, use this as a template as well. So creating segments is one of the second steps that we kind of discuss. So in terms of creating segments, as I talked about, it's very straightforward actually. You have top performers based on the numbers that they are achieving. In terms of, let's say somebody is achieving 100% of their quota, that they would, of course, and that would be consistently achieving that quota, because there would be some reps who might be achieving the quota maybe for a quarter, maybe next quarter they again go down below 70%, 100%. Some guys may be performing for 2 quarters, and the third quarter again they go down. So don't consider them as best examples. Probably pick up maybe one guy. If it's one guy, just one guy who has been performing 100% of the quota for the last 3 quarters. Take that as them as high performers. Then average performance and low performance you'll be able to figure out pretty easily that way. Okay, now once you have identified basically the processes, as in the high performance and the low performance, what you do is identify the sales process. Like looking at the top performers, there are 2 things you need to take care of here. One is looking how are these top performers best practices going to compare with the current sales process. So let's say you are doing outbound as a sales process to start with. So how do they approach their customers? Is it through LinkedIn? Is it through, it could be a very generic approach also. Of course, there could be some sales guys who would be doing a certain thing very well. Let's say some guys are very good at email. So I have had examples in my previous jobs where some guys would be so comfortable sending emails that they would never talk to customers. Of course, that doesn't work for enterprise sales. But yeah, if that's one way to kind of get customers to a demo or to your prospects to a demo, why not? So, but don't take that as an example for all your sales team members. So you have to take care of a point that you need to define processes or basically best practices, which is going to be a generic, which is going to work for the entire team. So that's where you need to kind of take care of these things. And the second is find out what these top sales performers are doing differently. So that's very important, because it's going to help you create a kind of a niche in terms of how your sales process gets defined. Yeah, Vijay, you have any points to add here?
Yeah, we remember this, right? We never had a sales process where I used to work as a sales guy. So what we used to do was we used to run these sales email campaigns, and one thing that we used to do was we used to look at open rates and click-through rates and response rates, and even within the email campaign, we look at all these emails, right, and say, okay, this guy's first email is working really well, this guy's second email is working really well, third guy's email is working well, and we'll just combine all 3 of them and create an email campaign, and everybody's using that. And that will work for like for a couple of months. Then we'll redo that thing again. So that, very crude way of doing this, but I think in a way we were trying to figure out how to improve our sales process, our email process at least within ourselves. So that's why I started smiling when you said this, right? So yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, updating the sales process is pretty manual. So you'll have to pick up the steps that you are thinking is working for your current sales process and add the ones that make sense. Basically, the ones which are kind of followed by the top performers. And based on this comparison, what you can do is you'll have a standard process that high performance and that kind of matches with sales process of the high performance. And you might have to add some points here or remove some points here and there. But generally, it will be your current sales process plus the points that you'll get from your top performers. And of course, it's a bigger team, and you'll get more points than you'll want to add. So you'll have to somewhere find a balance there in terms of what is going to work for the entire team. And that's your prerogative as a leader, what is going to work for you, your team, because every sales team is different, every sales process is different. Your ICP might be very different from what my ICP would be. So you'll have to take that call in terms of what is going to work for your set of customers or prospects.
One thing that we shouldn't do is again example from a previous company is copy the top performer A to Z. That doesn't work, right? Because some of these guys, we had this top performer guy who used to make dial 300 dials a day, right? That's not normally possible. You can't, right? And manual, we never had an auto dialer, so he has to manually done. He used to dial 300 dials a day, and he used to make his numbers, right? But that's not something that's possible. That's not something a normal guy can do, right? Dialing 300 numbers a day is not possible, right? So you have to be picky about what things to put into the process, because this is going to be a repetitive process, right? You won't reach the good sales process just by doing this once. So it has to happen, repeatedly. Only then it would work out, right? But just a word of caution: do not copy the entire process that the top guy does. Put your brain to it. As a sales manager, you would have some ideas on what works and what doesn't, and some things that needs to be put in, right, and some things that needs to change. So go with your gut with that.
Yeah, definitely. And then, the last step, last but not the least, is how do you implement this and basically implement and coach your sales teams? So ideally, what we see is once you have defined a process, you have kind of followed some of the best practices that your top performers are doing. What you do is kind of try to implement that through like a one-way kind of communication process where you're just telling the people that, okay, this is what you're going to follow. That never works. Let me tell you that based on my 10 plus years of sales experience, that doesn't work. So it has to be a consultative and a collaborative approach that you're going to have to take here, which means that sales process changes. Of course, this has to be taught in a training process, of course, but it also has to be on a one-to-one coaching or in a coaching where a senior sales rep is coaching a junior sales rep and so on. So it has to be a very collaborative approach, because this is also going to get evolved as we can kind of move into this new sales process. So one of the things that you can definitely do is create an updated sales process document and share it with the entire team. Assign champions in the team, because there'll be different guys are good at different things, right? So even in a sales process, of course, I will still close a deal, and I'm only good at discovery. Maybe I can do maybe 90% of the job in terms of, let's say, pricing and giving a demo, but I'm 120% in discovery. So that is a plus point. So I would be basically appointed as if I was part of a sales team, I'd be appointed as a discovery coach in a sub coach within a sales team. Or somebody is very good at negotiation, might be okay, he's okay-ish or good kind of in sense good in what they do in terms of pricing. So you would appoint a pricing coach, you will have different things that is important in your sales process, and appoint kind of champions for that process or sub process. And the last thing is driving one-to-one coaching for everyone in the team, where basically you pick up one guy, do a one-to-one coaching, because every sales rep has a different kind of, as I said, different strong points, weak points, weaknesses, and you'd want to take that up on a one-to-one thing, rather than kind of broadcasting it to a whole team, where some guys are kind of interested, some guys are finding it repetitive. So you want to kind of do it on a one-to-one basis only.
Again, a word of caution here, right? So the problem happens when you have, let's say, 10 plus members or even 5 plus members, right, in a sales team, and you try to implement this new sales process into all of them. So what's going to happen is when you have a new process and you want them to follow this process, people are going to fumble, and this is going to affect their productivity, right? You want to gradually implement this, right? That usually helps in the sense you can actually, let's say, for example, let's assume you have 5 people team and you have one high performer who's really good at discoveries, right? And what you can do is you can make him a, let's say, a champion, or we used to call it buddy system in the company I used to work. That you can make, we can make him a buddy whose only job is to help one guys or one person in the sales team to help them with discovery, right? And that's all he does, right? And it's not like essentially he would sit with them and teach them. It's basically a bunch of different things that we can do. I think that we'll cover that there. But this has to be gradual. You can't pull in 10 people and say, hey, this is the sales process, go and sell. Won't work, right? So that's just wanted to add that.
Sure. Yeah. Now the numbers kind of speak themselves. So 218% is the hard outcome per salesperson when sales training and coaching is implemented. Now, that tells you, this number tells you how important coaching is important, or how important the coaching is in a sales process, and not just training. So training is, of course, mostly one-way kind of communication, but coaching is where you are also kind of taking feedback from team members to incorporate that in your coaching process as a process. So when you train your team in a new process, basically what you need to do is follow it up with a regular coaching, either through Champion Buddy system, as Vijay mentioned, or via one-to-one coaching with managers and sales team. So this is kind of, most sales teams to do that. But yeah, you have to take a word of caution here in terms of not kind of falling into a trap of just doing it in a one-to-one way, one-to-one, like one-way communication in a way.
That's a common thing, by the way. I mean, everybody does in one-way communication. As far as I know, very rarely do I've seen where actually one-to-one communication happens once in a month, where you're taking feedback because, or giving feedback because the team wasn't doing well, right? So it's kind of an afterthought. That happens a lot. So yeah. It has to be part of your process, right? We're calling it coaching, but right, every salesperson needs some kind of help in some time, in different times, right? As a manager, I think we should be available for them to have a conversation with us and maybe help them improve their sales process itself. Selling acumen itself, right?
So I mean, coaching also, so anything that you are doing even in a sales process, and generally, so you have to keep a score somewhere, right? That is going to bring accountability to everyone, not just the person you're coaching, but also to yourself. Like, let's say if you're giving a score, and scoring is one of the ways to do that, in terms of keeping a measure of how you are doing in terms of coaching a sales rep, and how your person you're coaching is doing as well. So scoring calls is very, very, very important, or scoring meetings or scoring activities in the sales process. Let's say somebody is writing emails or sending emails to a bunch of guys. What is the open percentage? And if they are being coached on that aspect of the sales process, are they improving? Has their open rate percentage open, or has their demo conversion opened, kind of increased? So that gives you, there are tools, of course, available, a lot of tools available, but you can still, I mean, you also use some of the basic tools like Excel and Google Sheets to do that as well. So this is one way of how kind of we do coaching on our product, but yeah, there could be different simple ways to do that as well.
So another thing that one of the reasons that why I believe we need a question answer qualitative way of scoring is because it eliminates the point, hey, I feel like this is how you're doing kind of answers, right? It becomes more defined, right? There is well-defined questions, well-defined answers, and because of this, I'm saying, hey, you performed well, good or not. Instead of saying, hey, I see something and I feel like you're not doing well. I feel kind of statements goes away with scoring and evidence defined well.
Yeah, coaching, as I said, like has different aspects. So shadowing, as in like one person, the learner shadowing, or the senior sales rep shadowing another sales rep on a call or a meeting, is definitely going to help them. Both sides actually. But yeah, there are precautions to be followed. Provided Champion is a high performer and Champion follows a new process. So these are the 2 points you need to take care of when you are implementing this shadow coaching method of helping your sales team improve. As I said, like measuring anything is very important. So but yeah, at the same time, you need to have patience as a sales leader. And of course, you need to kind of have your management on your side as well in terms of having this patience to give it time. So this would at least require a quarter, if not more, depending upon the kind of customers or prospects you are targeting. If it's enterprise, large enterprise, probably it might even take a couple of quarters. But yeah, you have to give that time to kind of see the results in terms of how you're going to measure these things that we just talked about. And then basically you have to compare this with your previous outcomes. Like, let's say, what was your sales or pipeline numbers a couple of quarters back, or even a quarter back for that matter. So, but yeah, at the same time, having said this, there are three things in terms of metrics that you can measure. One is, of course, conversion rate, which is very straightforward. How many dollars have you got in the bank in terms of the new process that you followed for the last 2 quarters or 1 quarter? But there are broader other things also. Generally, let's say how many leads you have generated. And of course, those leads might take time to convert into a kind of a customer and getting the kind of the dollars in. But it would also, you can also measure this based on the pipeline value that your sales team has created, which also indicates that this, of course, you're not going to convert all of them, but even if you convert a certain percentage of that pipeline value, that is going to help you, of course, in achieve your numbers as well. And then the second, as I talked about, deal velocity, whether the processes that have been followed is helping you close deals faster. Like, are the deals moving through different stages at a higher speed than they were previously? So this is also going to help you understand whether what you have implemented is working or not working. Yeah, we talked a lot about increasing revenue numbers through coaching and through other methods. But what we also talked about in the first early slides is how can you improve productivity? And improving productivity leads to, I mean, obviously the same results, but yeah, there's a different direction to it. In terms of how are you going to improve productivity, what we suggest is basically automating your workflows to reduce your friction in terms of what people do on a day-to-day basis in your sales team. Now, generally, what happens is when you are trying to automate this thing, your process, there are three things which comes in terms of automation. One is, of course, lead conversion data, wherein you don't want your sales team to spend unnecessary time on filling in data, which is going to help you understand whether this deal is lead is good enough. So this could be done through lead enrichment tools, or there are a lot of tools available which can help you enrich lead inside your pipeline or inside your CRM. And then there's client communication, where you're able to communicate with the client in a much more effective way, where you use tools like sales engagement or even other tools where even CRMs for that matter help you automate these processes, where based on the response of the customer, you can send automated responses, which can of course be customized by your sales team. And the third is client engagement, where once you have sold into the customer, you got your foot into the door, you also need to engage your customers for retention, of course, one reason, which should be partially handled by the customer success team, but partially handled by the account management teams, where you are also able to upsell or cross-sell into different other departments within. If your product is designed that way, you can also kind of cross-sell into other departments in the same company. So these are the three things we'll kind of we suggest in terms of automation, and these are going to bring you results as we have seen in our sales process and generally the people or sales leaders we have been talking to as well.
Cool. Yeah. So in pretty good session, Sachin. Yeah. In terms of improving productivity, right? Of course, we covered a little bit of automation. We covered a little bit of a lot of sales process improvement. I think there are a bunch of different questions that can still be answered, and I would definitely want to do another session where we discuss specifically all the questions related to how sales can be improved, right? But apart from that, pretty good session, Sachin. Good conversation, and maybe we'll see.
Yeah, let's see.
We'll see. I think we'll continue to discuss this in our next recordings, next episodes. So until then.